Skyfall.
What do you say about a man like that?
3 months ago, you lost the drive containing the identity of every agent embedded in terrorist organizations across the globe.
I made a judgment call.
There isn't much road left.
Take the bloody shot.
.007 reporting for duty.
Where the hell have you been?
Enjoying death.
I only have one question. Why not stay dead? There's no shame in saying you've lost a step.
I'm your new quartermaster.
You must be joking.
Author PPKS 9mm short. It's been coded to your palm print, so only you can fire it. Less of a random killing machine, more of a personal statement.
Q.
007.
I want to meet your employer.
Be careful what you wish for.
Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
So, Steven, what did you think of Skyfall?
I think it's a really great Bond movie. Admittedly, I haven't seen too many of them though.
It's okay. It's not something to feel ashamed about because there's like 22, 23 of them.
Yeah.
And that's quite a few.
I will say you don't really need to, have seen too many of them to get some of the references or anything. Like I knew who some of these, I knew some of the references. I guess we won't spoil it.
Oh no, please go ahead.
Well, like Moneypenny eventually reveals herself at the end of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
The Aston Martin, the classic Bond car.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I know the exploding pen reference is from a movie, is a reference to a movie, but I forget which.
I don't remember which one. It was just sort of a gag that they used. I actually really loved that quote because actually, but I'll hold off on that.
Okay.
I'll let you go first. A lot of the references, you don't really need a real working knowledge of any of the Bond films. You just you need like a basic knowledge of anything that you could probably have picked up from the grapevine of pop culture. So pretty much you're good. You're golden. Don't worry.
Okay, I think it's a really great movie. I love Daniel Craig's performance as Bond. I love Javier Bardem as Silva, the Bond villain in it. Javier Bardem plays a cyber terrorist who attacks MI6, is posting the identities of NATO secret agents on a weekly basis, and has this huge vendetta against M and trying to assassinate her.
He also has a really intense hairstyle.
Yes.
Which was something that Steven and I were discussing. Javier Bardem, this is like the second or third film that he's done where he has had a crazy hairstyle. I don't think...
As the villain.
As the villain of a movie, no doubt. I don't think Javier Bardem can resist a role with a crazy hairstyle. And then he's
gonna have like a mohawk / mullet or something in one movie.
I think that his next one is going to be a rainbow afro. He's going to mark my words, he's going to be the next villain of the next Bond film. He's going to be reprised, but he's going to have a rainbow afro, and his name's going to be Rainbow Fro, Bo Fro for short. And just think about it, like all of the crazy shenanigans and laughter and jokes that will come from having a character named Rainbow Fro.
And like
just hearing a straightforward British voice, I should have known it was you, Rainbow Fro.
Like any successful Bond villain, he's gonna have his share of puns.
It's all gonna be hair related.
Oh yeah.
What were some of them that we came up with?
Let's put a pin in that.
Like he pulls a pick out of his hair. I'm going to pick you out. Except that's not how he talks. It's just me doing my stereotypical British voice. So forgive that.
Here's the debriefing on Bond's mission. I'll comb through it.
We thought of a lot more, but we're just going to spare you guys because we like you enough that we like you enough for the fact that you watch our stuff. So we're not going to torture you as much anymore. So, anyways,
but
continue.
At some point, there will be like a hole cut through his rainbow afro, and it's going to be 2 smaller pieces, and it'll be double Rainbow Fro.
Ah!
What does it mean, Mr. Bond?
What does it mean, Mr. Bond? I think the next title should be Double O Rainbow Fro. Double O Fro. I was just about to say that. Oh my God, we are the worst people ever. Oh yeah, we've really hit the lowest we can.
M has a lot to do with this movie as well. Like, she's usually in the previous Bond movie, she has like maybe 1 or 2 scenes, you know. But like in this one, she's actually one of the major characters. And the theme of the movie, or a recurring theme in the movie, is kind of the old ways versus modern, like, you know, changing with the times.
Well, they have that line in there, which is actually the
one line. There's like 12.
Well, there's one line in there that I think really sums up the theme of the film, and it's also one of the tracks on the soundtrack, which is amazing, and I'll get to it later, called "Old Dog, New Tricks." And I feel like that really sums up the film and where the Bond series is going from this point, with Skyfall onward. But Old Dog, New Tricks is like the best way to describe it.
It was Old Dog, New Tricks. Ray Fiennes' character describes the job as a young man's game to Bond.
Yeah.
There's numerous, like, and like the M's MI6 is put on trial for whether or not it's still relevant in, you know, a day and age where you have cyber terrorists and everything. So, you know, it's an interesting, you know, look at, you know, just how traditional ways are still sometimes the best ways. And of course, the way he shaves is still like the cutthroat razor.
Oh yeah.
As opposed to like an electric razor or something.
Well, there's that line in, I believe it's Ocean's 11, where they describe Danny Ocean as an analog man in a digital world, and I feel like that's a great way to describe Bond, especially in the new series, in the new generation. Going off what you're saying about overarching themes of the film, another one is obsolescence.
Yes.
Like, just, you know, the old, doing out with the old and coming in with the new, but, you know, obsolescence as well. Just how people think Bond is obsolete, you know, when he comes back from the dead. Comes back from the dead, with, you know, quotation marks, obviously, and how, you know, he's been damaged, you know, he's rather obsolete. M is constantly chastised for using old world methods, as they put it. She is, in this world, obsolete. And Javier Bardem's character, Silva, is an obsolete agent. You know, kind of what Bond could become if he continues down this path. And it's really thematic. Like, it's one of the few. It's almost like a literary Bond film, like, just in its handling of like multiple themes and characterization and depth. And that's something I really love to give this film credit for.
So I really love that theme. You know, it really kept with it the whole time. You know what the movie's about. But at the same time, it doesn't really like hammer it home too much. It doesn't like state it explicitly all the time. But it's interspersed throughout the movie at a nice even pace.
It is. It's handled very well.
Yeah. The action sequences are very well choreographed.
What was it I said to you within like the first 10 minutes
Quantum
during?
Of Solace, it's nice to know what the hell's going on.
No, I had said, holy f***, it's an action sequence, and I can tell what's going on.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy editing in Quantum of Solace.
More like incoherent.
Yeah.
If anybody remembers the Bourne Legacy review that was up for about a month, I went into why I hate the editing in Quantum of Solace, and I can just safely say Skyfall fixes that and more than makes up for it.
Yes.
So I was won over purely by the fact that it wasn't constant shaky cam. It was rather steady, smooth camera movements, and I could tell where things were going. I could just tell what the hell was going on, and I was won over immediately. It was like some guy just came up to me with like 100 pounds of chocolate. It was like, dude, f*** everything, I'm there. Skyfall is the movie equivalent of 100 pounds of chocolate. So don't actually eat 100 pounds of chocolate. I don't need that on my conscience, but yes, it's wonderful. So anyways.
Yeah, the camera takes its time when it needs to take its time. Javier Bardem's entrance, his intro is just amazing. It's just like one pretty steady shot for the most part.
It's just a single shot.
Yeah.
And
it's Javier Bardem doing a monologue, which you don't see in movies nowadays. It's like you get the feeling like with all these interspersed like cutting and everything, you get the feeling that actors maybe go into the filming with like maybe 3 lines like memorized going into it. But like this one, Javier Bardem had this whole like story.
And that was a hell of a monologue. And Steven can tell you, I leaned over as soon as it was finished, and I just said, dude, that was one hell of a montage. And then we fist bumped. It was awesome. Monologue.
Yeah.
Damn it. I'm tired. Leave me alone.
I know. It's like past midnight right now.
We're past our bedtime, clearly.
It's almost
We're clearly past our bedtimes. We are old dogs, and we are learning new tricks.
Let's see. I love the camera work, and usually I don't notice that too much. Usually
I just kept bringing it to your attention. That was such a.
The dialogue in the movie is very great. A lot. It seems like everybody in the movie has some sort of like a snarky sense of humor, but yet they all sound very different.
They're all characters.
They're very.
Rather than just sounding like someone. This is just the same guy writing them.
Yeah.
Like they all feel like distinct characters, and I love that.
The 3-act structure is very well.
Yes, it is.
You can tell when
it's very.
Each act begins.
Yeah, it's very well utilized, but it doesn't feel like formulaic or anything. What's the saying? What is that saying? Be predictable in the unpredictable ways.
Yeah.
So like where it's going, but how it gets there is the fun.
It's all about the journey.
Yep, exactly. And don't choke up on me or anything, Jesus. But anyways,
I think I'm about done.
Any more to add?
I'd give it an 8.5, 9 out of 10 maybe.
It's good. That's a good one. That's a really good one.
Some men are coming to kill us. We're gonna kill them first.
I f***ing loved Skyfall. Unfortunately, I am not the best person to talk to about the Bond series. I've seen a handful of the Connery ones. I've seen Moonraker, which I try to forget, and I, for the most part, have. I just know it's f***ing awful. I've seen most of the Pierce Brosnan films. My first Bond film actually was Die Another Day, which I'm really, really ashamed. I know, it hurts me too.
Yeah, GoldenEye was my first one.
See, you got lucky.
Yeah,
you got lucky.
Odd job.
Yeah. Odd job.
Random task.
Oh, Austin Powers. But yeah, Die Another Day was my first Bond film, so I'm not really the authority to talk to about that. If you'd like to talk to someone or some people who know way more about it, you might want to try contacting Taylor Carlisle or Casey Gerard from Geeks at College. They're still on the podcast. They'd love to talk to you about it. I actually wish we could have had them as guests, but sadly that's not how it worked out. We'll cry about it later.
We're about 5 hours away from them right now.
Yeah, kind of a problem. So I will try not to go into the older Bond films because what I want to focus on mostly is the new iteration of it, the Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, and Skyfall. The new generation. And those are the ones that I'll talk about mostly. But I think that of those 3, Skyfall could easily be the best of them. And to anyone who knows me knows how much I love Casino Royale. Casino Royale I actually regard as one of the finest action films of the last few decades. It also, one of the reasons why it's my favorite is because a lot of times I have a problem with action films because there's just not a whole lot going on in the brain here. It's just action, 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 but you never work for it. That's a problem I had with Quantum of Solace, actually. The thing I loved about Casino Royale was that you get your action, but in between that is lots of character development, plot development, everything that really makes for a well-rounded story. So that when you finally get to an action sequence, not only is it well choreographed and well staged and just well executed in general, but you feel like you worked for that action scene. You feel like you earned it. So when you get it, it just feels so much more rewarding to watch. And Skyfall does kind of the same thing a little bit. It doesn't have as many action sequences, but what it lacks in really elaborate action sequences, it more than makes up for in everything else. I think Daniel Craig has been an amazing James Bond. Taylor and I talked about it a while ago, because Taylor has actually read the Ian Fleming novels that these were based on. I haven't. I would love to one of these days when I actually have free time to read stuff. But from what I've been told, Daniel Craig is probably the closest of all of the Bonds, except for maybe Connery, to being how James Bond is in the books. You know, he's not like the most suave guy. He's actually kind of a brute, kind of a grunt. You know, he's not as suave as the movies have made him out to be. You know, he just did his job, and he did it well. He carried out, you know, what other people didn't want. And Craig, I think, like I said, I think Craig is probably the closest that's ever come to that. And it's really fun to watch him do that. You know, try to mix, you know, meld the best of both worlds. The acting from everyone is uniformly wonderful. Craig is, like I said, Craig is wonderful. Naomi Harris as, well, spoiler, Miss Moneypenny. Eve Moneypenny was fantastic, as always. I've loved Naomi Harris ever since she was in 28 Days Later. Ralph Fiennes, Judi Dench, Javier Bardem especially, it makes for a wonderfully effective villain. Much more so than, I have to say, the villain for Quantum of Solace, who was played by Matthew Almeric, who was good, but he just didn't have a whole lot to do. And that was something that I had a problem with Quantum of Solace, was that it was just a very weak villain, whereas the villain in Skyfall, you could tell they put a lot of time and effort into creating that character, and oh buddy, does he shine. It's wonderful. Just like the jokes he makes, just things that only Bardem could have brought to the table. They're just wonderful. But anyone who knows me can tell you that I've always been really, really excited for Skyfall, mostly because of not just the people in front of the camera, but the people behind the camera. The film was directed by Sam Mendes, who is very famous. He's an Academy Award-winning director. He's famous for American Beauty, Road to Perdition, Jarhead. Less so Revolutionary Road and Away We Go, but they're all solid efforts. You know, they all range from at least really good to amazing. And he's definitely one of the more trend-setting filmmakers out there nowadays, especially with American Beauty. Like, he sort of just launched an entire, you know, miserable suburban misery genre, you know, that culminated with Desperate Housewives and even to an extent Mad Men. But he's really, really important. He also had a background in stage theater, and all of his films contain a certain aspect of that, especially Skyfall. Yeah. Like, just the way things are staged and blocked. You can tell that this guy has had a career in something that requires staging and blocking. Probably the best example is Javier Bardem's his intro scene, which is just so theatrical. Yeah, it is. And it just works so wonderfully well. So not only do you have Sam Mendes, but also you have the cinematographer, Roger Deakins, who is easily, aside from Janusz Kaminski, probably the finest working cinematographer nowadays. But not only that, you also have John Logan, who was just recently got nominated for a writing award for Hugo. He's also famous for a lot of the better Martin Scorsese films. He wrote The Aviator. And last but not least, you have Thomas Newman, the composer for this film. And Thomas Newman being brought on was a big deal because the film contains a lot of normal Sam Mendes collaborators. Roger Deakins, Roger Deakins, but also Thomas Newman, who is a composer, who's also the cousin of Randy Newman, who everyone knows who that is, and the son of Alfred Newman, who is one of the most prolific film composers of the golden age of cinema. but he's been working on almost every single Sam Mendes film. And this kind of presented a problem because David Arnold had been doing the Bond film scores for the last... I can't even count that many. But everyone just sort of assumed that he was coming back, and then when they announced that Thomas Newman was on board, I was very happy. Thomas Newman's one of my favorite composers. He's amazing, and sorry to a lot of David Arnold fans. I like David Arnold, but he needed to be booted from the series for a while, like a while ago, because after a while it was just kind of the same atonal bim bam bash over and over and over again. And having Thomas Newman brought on was especially wonderful because it's a very different form of film composition. It's much more it's much less bombastic, it's more heartfelt and emotional, a lot more bittersweet, and he really adds that much more depth to Skyfall. And that's what Thomas Newman does. He always manages to elevate the material, so his work on Skyfall is no different. So I was always happy to have him on board. If you ever want to check out any of his really good scores, check out his scores for American Beauty and Road to Perdition, 2 other Sam Mendes films. The man is just incredible. So the reason I was really excited about this was you have all of these A-list contenders working on this film, but also this was the first big budget film that most of them have ever worked on. Like, I don't think any of them have ever worked on a film that was past like $100 million, save for Thomas Newman working on WALL-E and Finding Nemo, but you get the idea. So throwing a budget at these people who had never done an action film, much less a James Bond film before, was a really big risk, and they pulled it off just smashingly. Especially Roger Deakins' work. It's like, oh hey, you're gonna put $250 million to make this film. You want to see some shit, and some of the just the shots are just amazing. And can I just say, the fight in the building in Shanghai with the assassin was just art.
What I was saying earlier with as opposed to say Quantum of Solace with the really chaotic editing, it stays on this one angle and maybe moves just a little bit, but it's always just kind of like it's
a close-in dolly shot, but no cuts whatsoever.
Exactly.
It's a fight scene that happens in a single take, and you only see the shadows of them. You only see the silhouettes. You just have the neon signs in the background. I believe it's a jellyfish or something, and that scene alone is worth the $11 that you'll have to pay to see it. It is just, there's no other word for it. It's art. It is amazing. That's probably my favorite sequence of this year, aside from something from The Avengers or The Dark Knight Rises. It's just incredible. So watching all of these people, I was really scared that these people had never made an action film before, because the last time that happened, we got Quantum of Solace. And it was basically like it could have gone either way. Quantum of Solace went out the back door, and Skyfall came out the front door. It was just, the quality is just astounding. I don't really need to talk about the story too much because we've already done that with Steven. I kept jumping in like a I felt so bad about that. But
you illustrate your thoughts a bit more eloquently.
Oh, thank you. I try. I feel like I'm coming across like.
If this were like the next day, I might be able to compete with Neil, but Neil can formulate his thoughts a lot more
quickly.
Yeah.
This is just an exercise, really. Yeah. It's just so much fun to do. But anyways, I guess there's really not as much I can say about Skyfall besides I'm going to be bold and give it a 9.5 out of 10, possibly a 10 out of 10. It is in my top 5 of the year. It may even make it to number 1. And you guys know how much I love The Avengers and Dark Knight Rises and whatnot. This might overtake them. It's just stunning. Wonderful filmmaking from everyone on board. It's completely satisfying. It's probably one of the best Bond films I've ever seen. So, Steven, would you recommend Skyfall?
I like it. Yeah. Definitely recommend it. Definitely recommend it.
And I would highly recommend Skyfall. If you're gonna make like a top 5 list of things to see this year, Skyfall needs to be on that list.
We should do that like at the end of the year. So
Oh, absolutely.
Top 5 2012 movies.
And then we can carry over the Sucker Punch Award of from Geeks at College over to Geeks After College. And I think the Sucker Punch Award probably has to go to, of the things that we've seen, has to go to the Bourne Legacy.
Bourne Legacy.
Because that movie, seriously. So yeah, that we at Geeks After College highly recommend Skyfall. So, to wrap everything up, we here at Geeks After College highly recommend Skyfall, and yeah, that's about it. So, we'll leave you with the parting words. Put on pants today.